There's a moment that people like this know well. Someone says something offhand, nothing meant by it, and it lands like a stone dropped into deep water. Everyone else moves on. The conversation keeps going, but something in them is still back there, feeling the ripple. They feel things that have already ended. They feel things that haven't happened yet. They feel things on behalf of people who aren't even in the room. And for most of their lives, someone has told them that this is the problem. It isn't. There's a specific type of person who processes the world at a different volume than everyone around them. A piece of music hits them somewhere physical. A stranger's face at the wrong moment can ruin their afternoon. They absorb the emotional weather of a room without deciding to. And for years, sometimes decades, they've been trying to turn it down. What's actually happening in people like this is more interesting than a sensitivity dial that's stuck too high. It's a fundamentally different relationship with the nervous system. And once you understand what's underneath it, the whole thing looks completely different. In the late 1990s, psychologist Elaine Aron identified something she called sensory processing sensitivity, a trait found in roughly 15 to 20% of the population, and notably in over 100 other species besides humans. This wasn't a disorder she discovered, it was a survival strategy. Some members of any group are wired to process experience more deeply, to pause, absorb, and notice things others move past, not because something went wrong with them, because that capacity is useful. It's always been useful. What this looks like in a nervous system is measurable. Brain imaging studies show that people high in sensory processing sensitivity have stronger activation in areas linked to awareness, empathy, and integration of complex information. Their brains are not overreacting, they're over-collecting. They are running a more detailed scan of everything around them, all the time. The exhaustion that comes with this isn't weakness. It's the natural result of running a system that was never designed to be idle. It processes when nothing is happening. It processes during sleep. It processes memories from years ago and conversations that haven't taken place yet. It is, quite literally, always on. And there's something that gets almost no attention in how this trait develops, because many people who feel things deeply didn't start out knowing that was what they were doing. They just knew something was different. Adults called it being too emotional, too sensitive, too much. And so they learned something very specific, that their inner experience was somehow disproportionate to reality, that they couldn't trust what they felt. That lesson does enormous damage, because the problem was never that they felt too much. The problem was that no one around them could hold it with them. Now, and this is the part worth sitting with, feeling everything deeply is not automatically a gift, not in the way people like to frame it online. Because the same nervous system that makes someone extraordinarily attuned to beauty, to other people's pain, to the texture of a moment, that same system is the one lying awake at 2 a.m. reconstructing a conversation from 3 weeks ago, looking for what they missed. It's the one that absorbs other people's distress so completely that it becomes hard to find the boundary between what belongs to them and what they just walked into. Researchers who study emotional contagion, the process by which we unconsciously mirror the emotional states of people around us, have found that highly sensitive people are significantly more susceptible to it, which sounds like a superpower, and sometimes it is. But in the wrong environment, surrounded by people who are anxious, critical, or emotionally chaotic, it functions more like an open wound next to a storm. There's also a particular pattern that develops when someone who feels deeply has been told repeatedly that their feelings are too much. They become extraordinarily skilled at managing other people's emotions. They can read a room before they've crossed the threshold. They know when to go quiet, when to turn it up, when to disappear. They become fluent in a language of calibration, always adjusting, always making it easier for everyone else. And in doing that, they often forget to ask what they actually need. That isn't sensitivity, that's survival. And there's a difference worth knowing. Here's what actually changes when someone who feels deeply stops trying to feel less and starts building a life that fits how they actually work. Aron's research consistently found that highly sensitive people thrive not when their sensitivity is reduced, but when their environment is right. The trait itself doesn't change, But in conditions of safety, low chronic stress, and genuine connection, the same nervous system that was exhausting in the wrong context becomes something else entirely. Creative, precise, unusually good at understanding people, at catching what's unspoken, at caring in ways that leave an actual mark on someone's life. The thing that was supposed to be the flaw turns out to be the whole point. What you're probably sitting with right now, if this is yours, isn't the feeling itself. It's the years of being told the feeling was a problem. And that second thing is what's worth examining. Because the feeling isn't going anywhere. It's not supposed to. But the story you built around it, the one that said you were too much, too fragile, too difficult to love in the way you needed, that one isn't true. It was just the explanation available to people who didn't have a better one. You weren't too much. You were just in rooms that were too small. Understanding this about yourself, what it is, where it came from, why it runs the way it does, that's a real step. But understanding tends to live in the head, and people who feel deeply are already spending most of their time there. The loop is familiar. You gain the insight, you think about it extensively, you feel it for a while, and then the old patterns just quietly reassemble themselves, because nothing on the outside changed. The gap between knowing something about yourself and actually building a life that accounts for that, that's the hard part. And it's the part that usually needs more than awareness. If you're someone who recognizes what we talked about today, the exhaustion, the calibration, the feeling that you've been running a system that was never designed to rest, there's something in the pinned comment that was built specifically for that pattern. It's a structured 7-day reset designed to help you externalize what's been looping internally and turn it into something you can actually move through. It's in the description if that's where you're at right now. And if this video resonated, subscribe. We do this every week.